Assetto Corsa Rally just did a community Q&A on their Discord. The game director Erwin Zonka answering questions directly from the players. And since I'm not sure if they're gonna publish this anywhere, I decided to take some notes to be able to bring you all the stuff they talked about and teased for the future. Apologies if my voice sounds a bit weird today, I'm a little bit sick, but I still wanted to get this video out to you. So if you appreciate that, leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. But let's get into it. I've tried to organize my notes on the community questions and their answers into some sections. And the first one I've called the roadmap, updates and content, which is probably one of the most exciting things they talked about. So Erwin acknowledged that the monthly update cadence they originally aimed for turned out to be unsustainable. They have too much to develop, test, debug and ship. So now they've kind of settled on a 2-month schedule for updates. But they once again also said that delays might still happen. But since the last update 0.3 was released at the end of February, update 0.4 is targeted for the end of April. From their own words, this will be a smaller update, so probably no new locations, maybe 1 or 2 new cars, we'll see. Update 0.5 is targeted for June and is described as big, so I personally would guess that we will get a new location there. What kind of a location that is gonna be, they also teased, because they said that in summer, which June qualifies, I would say, there will be a new gravel rally location. That to me is really exciting because I just love gravel the most in rallying. Even though in Assetto Corsa Rally I've also grown accustomed and to like tarmac rallies as well. But another gravel location joining Wales will still be amazing. We don't know what this location is gonna be. My hope personally is Finland, as that for me is one of the most iconic gravel locations of the current rally WRC era. But also something like Latvia would be very cool to me. But that's not it. In autumn they are targeting also to release a new tarmac rally location. I'm really curious what that is gonna be, and I hope that it will bring something different to the table than the 2 current ones in the game. And Erwin once again said what they are targeting for the release, which is about 30 cars and 120 kilometers of roads for the 1.0 release. If they are still on track for their schedule, then that would be sometime probably in Q1 to Q2 of 2027. That to me was already some really cool info on what is coming in the future for Assetto Corsa Rally. But now in section 2 we are talking about the teased cars. Because Erwin basically confirmed 2 iconic 90s cars are coming very soon. A Peugeot and a Subaru. He did not confirm which cars exactly these are gonna be, but since he said iconic 90s cars and there was a list of data mined game files with a lot of cars already in them, I would guess the following. For the Peugeot, I would say this is almost certainly the Peugeot 306 Maxi. This car was a dominant force in the kit car era of the mid to late 90s. Front-wheel drive, naturally aspirated and absurdly quick on tarmac. It would be a very fascinating car to drive because of the front-wheel drive combined with quite a lot of power. For the Subaru, I would say this will very likely be the Subaru Impreza. Specifically the Impreza S5, the 1998 WRC car. You know, Colin McRae? This car defined an era. I don't think there is a car more requested in the community and one of the most obvious gaps in the roster. Even more than for the Peugeot, I really hope I'm right on this one. To me, this car has to be in a serious rally sim like Assetto Corsa Rally. And in general, it's very cool to see that they're filling this hole in the 90s era with these 2 cars coming in soon. No confirmation yet, but I'm really hoping 0.4 in April will bring one or even both of these cars. Now some points on the physics and simulation side of things. Erwin did talk in quite a lot of detail about how important their handling model is to them and how much work they are putting into it and trying to get everything right. There was a specific question about brakes and also partially tires, which they said is very detailed in terms of their simulation, and sometimes they have to have some trade-offs in what they actually do simulate for performance reasons. And also the game is still early access, so some things might still be broken. One of those was apparently parts of the thermal model, which was partially disabled in the 0.3 update because it wasn't behaving correctly under all conditions. So they're working on fixing it before re-enabling it in a later update. And more broadly, for force feedback and the core physics, they are still actively working on that as well. There was a question of content versus the core game, and it was very good to hear that their approach is to free up programmers by empowering the art team to handle the content independently. And they are apparently almost there, so the programmers can work on the core systems so they get the attention that they need in parallel. Another topic that was talked about is weather and stages. Like, what about snow beyond Monte Carlo? Which is also something that I really wanted to know. And good news is, it will be coming. The Monte Carlo snow was very well received and they've already done some initial tests for other locations and it's looking promising, as they say. But sadly no date yet, but it's actively in development. For the question of more localized weather, so for example dry at the bottom of Monte Carlo and then snow at the top, like you often see in real life. Here they started by saying that they're very proud of their dynamic weather system as it stands, and I think it's generally a very novel thing for a rally sim. And I was really impressed with how that worked with a dynamic snow on Monte Carlo, for example. They do have some more ideas, like having snow patches on colder parts of the road, so for example where trees would cast shadows so that the whole track would feel more dynamic that way, or also something like rubber buildup on tarmac surfaces. It's all things that they think about and they have a lot of ideas, but it's not a priority at the moment. And the same goes for mixed surface rallies, so something like tarmac into gravel and the other way around, like you would have seen in the Poland rally stages of the WRC in the past. They were very clear that this is not happening for now. Their philosophy is to reflect modern rally, which is predominantly single surface per stage. They left the door open for later, but it's explicitly off the table for right now. And they also wanted to be very clear on what they are working on, because as I said, they have a lot of ideas and a lot of things they want to do with the game, but they are a very small team and have to prioritize. And right now the priority is both the core game, building and fixing core features, and content, like cars and new rally locations. And I think it's great they realized this, because if they weren't focusing, progress would be very slow and core features would just not get finished or fixed. Speaking of features, they also talked about features that are coming, just not yet. One of those is native VR support. This is still in progress, but they acknowledge it's moving kind of slowly, so they don't have a timeline yet, unfortunately. The UE5 VR works, but isn't great, and they know it. So all you VR users will need to wait a little bit longer. On online and multiplayer features, they were specifically asked about lobbies and clubs and different multiplayer modes. Here they didn't go into a lot of detail, they just acknowledged that clubs are very complex and they want to get them right, and their first priority is a base layer of online features. For a lot of the online and multiplayer things, they are still in the game design phase, which is good to know, and it's good that they are honest there. But if I did understand them correctly, then we will get some early online multiplayer features in one of the next updates actually. Not 100% sure on that, but we will probably get more info in the coming months. Another question that was asked was about co-driver reactions to your driving. So for example, if you made a mistake or hit a big bump really hard. They actually said that audio cues are already fully recorded on this, so they have clips and cues from the co-driver for this kind of thing. But on the feature side, it's currently not implemented yet. And once again, it's not the current focus, so we will probably have to wait a bit on this one. On the topic of modding and modding tools, they are currently investigating it and they like modding, they want it, but as far as I've understood, it's not 100% yet, and for sure it will not arrive before the 1.0 release of the game. So mods, yes, probably, but not for a while. Then there were, I think, 2 questions on some sort of rally academy, or at least a training area, which is something that they definitely want in the game in the future. They do have some sort of testing area for development purposes, and it kind of sounded like that is way more fleshed out than you might think. But once again, it's not a priority at the moment. They know the onboarding is a weakness right now, but they know it's early access and that they are focusing on other things at the moment. But a structured learning mode is something they genuinely want. And then there was another small little question where the answer itself or the topic wasn't really that big, but the way that Irvin answered this tells you a lot about their approach to early access. The question was on replay-only graphics settings, which is a nice idea if you want full performance for your driving but then perfect quality for your replay. And the second part of the question was on if the replay could be on a single screen for triple screen users. And Irvin was very clear here. They have no plans for this yet, but he really liked this suggestion and flagged it as exactly the kind of feedback early access is for. So while it was not on their list up to this point, it really sounded like it is now. To me, this is still really awesome to hear how they are handling and responding to feedback for their early access phase of the game. When asked about paid DLC and the future in general after the 1.0 release, Irvin was very clear that they do not have concrete plans yet, but that DLC will very likely happen. But only after 1.0 once they are fully satisfied with the core game. They want to support AC Rally for many years. And this leads us nicely into Irvin's and also my closing thoughts. Irvin did thank the community a lot for all their questions and support for Assetto Corsa Rally. This game, this project is their dream of an ultimate rally sim. And it was a leap of faith for Irvin and his team. Because as we all know, rallying is a little bit of a niche sport. And even in the sim racing community, not everyone is into rallying. But Supernova Game Studios want to make this the best and most accurate rallying experience that you can have. They are a small team, but they have big ambitions and they are also very honest about their pace. I personally am very happy with what I've heard so far. I know me and probably everybody else would love more and more content, features and fixes for AC Rally as soon as possible. But I can also very much understand that they need to move at their own pace, not rush things and make Assetto Corsa Rally the best rally sim that we have on the market. And I really do believe that they are well on their way here. And I hope that as more content and features are added to it, more sim racers will give this game a shot and support Supernova Game Studios in their endeavors. I personally think that they've earned it. But let me know what you think, both on the state of Assetto Corsa Rally as a whole, but also on the details that they've shared and the cool new things coming that they've teased here. I hope that this summary of the community Q&A was helpful to you and it gives you some of the information that you may have missed otherwise. If so, I would really appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel if you want to see more Assetto Corsa Rally content in the future. But that's it from me. I've been HD. Thanks a lot for watching, have an awesome day and see you in the next one.